you so much for coming over.
Thanks for having me. So.
Mayim?
Yes.
Mayim or Mayim?
Mayim.
Mayim, right?
Yeah.
People mispronounce it all the time.
It's water.
I mean, I know, and I'm like, wait, Mayim?
Yes.
Let's start in the beginning.
Okay.
You grew up in California.
Yes.
How was your childhood?
I went to public school my whole life. Didn't grow up with a lot of money. My dad was a public school teacher. My mom was a nursery school teacher. I went to synagogue. I really enjoyed that. I was that kid who really liked Hebrew school, and I really loved my bat mitzvah. I loved learning and chanting and all those things. You know, I grew up in a complicated family. I think I grew up fast emotionally, but yeah, many positive things about my childhood too.
So Judaism played a part. You weren't forced to do that.
No, it didn't feel like I was forced. You know, my mom was raised Orthodox, very, very religious, and she kind of left that when she married my dad. I didn't meet most of my family in Israel till I was 16 and went there.
How was that?
It snowed, which is a very rare thing
Right.
in Jerusalem. It snowed, it was Hanukkah. I mean, we lit the Hanukkah like at the hotel. I mean, it was like a very cinematic first trip to Israel. And, you know, we went to the Dead Sea, and even though it was winter, I covered myself in mud. Like, I wanted to do all the things. It was really an unbelievable trip.
There's a feeling when you go to Israel, even after a few months being away, when I go back, it's just something feels different.
It's a very special insular place. You know, the Yiddish word is heimische. Like, it feels very like you're home.
Don't know about the future, that's anybody's guess.
So Blossom was, you know, a cultural touchdown, really impacted the entire country here. How was that like to be a teenager and getting all of this attention? And
growing up in front of the camera was definitely an experience. I wasn't very taken with the fame part. That wasn't really interesting to me. I liked performing, and I liked being on, you know, Blossom was a TV show about a girl in a climate when there weren't a lot of shows about girls, especially smart girls.
Congratulations, Blossom. What are you gonna do now that you've gotten your period? I'm going to Disneyland to punch out Snow White.
So I liked being part of that. I wanted to go to college, and when Blossom ended, I was 2 years out of high school already. So I was ready to go to college.
I think something that's amazingly cool about you is after Blossom, you went back to school for your PhD. What did you get your PhD in?
I got my PhD in neuroscience from UCLA. And
wow.
Yes,
Good for you.
thank you.
I got an undergraduate degree and a doctorate, had 2 kids, and then I started on Big Bang Theory.
right, and the application to Big Bang Theory was your CV mentioned.
No,
the
it's
miscellaneous
funny. I was
part.
the only neuroscientist who auditioned to play a neurobiologist on TV.
Right.
You know, I had just started auditioning again. I had a toddler and an infant. I mean, I had an actively nursing infant, and I was running out of health insurance. At that time, I was teaching neuroscience, I was teaching Hebrew, I was teaching piano. I was doing a lot of things to make ends meet. And I got this audition for this show I had never seen. It was already popular. It was in its 3rd season.
Jewelry? Seriously? Sheldon, you are the most shallow, self-centered person I have ever met. Do you really think that another transparently Oh, it's a tiara! A tiara! I have a tiara! Put it on me, 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 put it on me.
At my audition, they said, "Are you really a neuroscientist?" I said, "I am, but has nothing to do with being an actor or playing one." But terminology, I guess, was easier for me to pronounce.
Do you feel any similarities between the character and you? I mean, other than, of course, the neuroscience part.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely, you know, kind of an introvert. I really enjoyed, you know, getting to grow as a character, meaning I started out a lot more reserved, and my character kind of came out of her shell.
And how was it to go back to playing after so long?
A bit of culture shock, you know, to kind of leave, you know, I was in academia and getting my doctorate, but also, you know, becoming a parent. But the sitcom schedule is pretty good. It's like school hours, so like you're home every night. So I still was able to be with my kids a lot, which was great. You know, on Blossom, I was the star, and so there was a lot more pressure. And on Big Bang Theory, I didn't feel that much pressure, which was great. You know, like I did what I did, and then I went home.
And through this time, you are a big advocate for many important causes. There's this thread that you keep speaking up for to include women in science and elevate them. Is that something that feels very personal to you?
I did a lot of advocacy for women in science and encouraging young women in particular to pursue careers in science, or even just to learn about the possibilities, because I think a lot of people sort of pigeonhole and think like, I don't want to be a scientist, that's boring, you know, but there's plenty of exciting ways to participate in science. Two of the books that I wrote were about the neuroscience and psychology of like the puberty process. I wrote one for boys and one for girls, and you know, I'm a science communicator. That's kind of what, you know, I was trained to be, and sort of what naturally happens when you're a scientist who happens to be an actor.
Mental illness was another issue that you keep highlighting.
Yeah.
And through your podcast as well.
I did a lot of advocacy in those realms. I started a podcast almost 5 years ago. We have 60 million downloads and counting, and it's all about mental health, mental wellness. We get celebrities and experts to talk about mental health kind of from a personal perspective. What keeps coming up a lot is a notion of spirituality as supportive of general wellness. And so we talk a lot about the intersection of science and spirituality and how that impacts overall wellness.
Let's talk about that, about spirituality and what it means to you and how it connects to mental health.
Yeah, I mean, I think for some people medication is great and it's the answer and it fixes things. And for a lot of people, medication is not the whole answer and it doesn't fix things. One of the things that meditation allows is for you to get in touch with a quiet part of yourself, a part that's aware of a larger consciousness, and it is beneficial and in fascinating ways for physical health and for mental health as well. So that's one of the reasons people keep telling you, meditate.
And so faith plays a role in it, and would you describe yourself as a believer?
Yeah, I would describe myself as a person of faith. You know, I always had a notion of God, like the Jewish God is what I was sort of, you know, taught. But, you know, the sun coming up is a miracle. How you choose to commemorate it is the difference between people of faith and people who say that they don't have faith. But I have a very scientific, very comfortable notion of God and the universe. I believe that there's echad, like there's oneness, and every culture has a way that they interpret that oneness, and that comes with it building different religions and different practices and different rituals. But to me, there's just one overseeing entity, just like gravity doesn't change if you're a Christian or Muslim or Hindu. It's just one gravity, so yeah.
So even as a scientist, it actually helps you believing in God.
Yeah, for me, like everything I've ever learned about in science has affirmed my belief that this is an unbelievable planet that we're living on, and that we have the ability to comprehend the structure of the human eye, the human heart, the human, you know, emotional system.
So scientifically speaking, can you explain antisemitism to us? Which side of the brain does not function?
I mean, there's definitely a scientific and anthropological understanding of why people have tribes, but I think the level to which we have seen a global celebration of the destruction of Jewish people, that to me puts us in a different realm. And there's something that does feel different. It feels like the security that I raised my children with was shattered. And for some time, I felt like, am I just being paranoid? But then October 8th happened, and that was the end of my paranoia. Because to see the vociferous and enthusiastic celebration of a massacre by so many, and the simultaneous silence from the organizations that I believe have a right to speak out against injustice, massacre, rape. So that noise and that silence to me indicated something very different is happening. And I think we're in a different era of Jewish identity. I think the questioning of the policies of the government of the State of Israel is important. It's always been an important part of our people and our statehood. But the level of scrutiny that Israel is being held to, the extreme disproportionate emphasis on the wrongs of Israel in the scope of the world is astounding. And I know no other country where if you don't like what's happening there, you ask for it to be destroyed. Like I mean, we're laughing because like, that's a crazy thing.
Right.
Never in my wildest nightmares would I imagine so many useful idiots marching without even knowing what they're marching for.
There is only one solution.
There is only one solution.
Intifada revolution.
Intifada revolution.
Calling for destruction of a people and hiding under free speech. I believe in protest. I believe in people not agreeing with the policies of the state of Israel. I agree with all of those liberal values, but never did I imagine we would be seeing this on campuses continuing for months and months and months and months and years.
To this day, yeah. I mean, I think for a lot of Jews, we were waiting for this line to be crossed that everyone would be like, okay, this is enough. Like, I think on October 7th, we were expecting it. It didn't happen. A year later, we saw the hostage release. We saw the girls coming back home, and the mob and the chanting and the violence against and forcing them on stage. We thought, the world must say something. And then the 3 male hostages coming back, like looking like Holocaust survivors coming out of Auschwitz. And not a word. And then we saw the babies with their mother.
With a vampire Netanyahu poster. I mean, coffins on a stage with music playing. I mean, it's the stuff of nightmares. It's so macabre, like that's the word, right? It's morbid, it's so bizarre, but that's what makes me feel like, oh, I'm not paranoid. This is really being ignored.
Right. And I mean, I think maybe there's no line that can ever be crossed to...
When it comes to the Jewish people, it seems there's no punishment too great. The lack of moral clarity it's very disturbing. And I think it's fairly pervasive. Pervasive in the Democratic Party, which, I was raised a Democrat and consider myself a progressive liberal, so it's very confusing.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah.
I mean, my goal with everything I do in this work and even this, I want to humanize Jews and I want people to see us as human, because I think we know scapegoating comes when you don't know someone and you're afraid of them. But after this, like now I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking, is it going to help? I mean, what would be the message that you tell your, not friends, but people that are progressive liberals like you?
Yeah.
And don't really get it.
I think that for a lot of people, their reluctance to sympathize with Jewish people comes from a perceived notion that we are wealthy and that we run the banks and run the world. That misperception really facilitates a lot of hatred. I think it gets hidden in the disdain for money or the disdain for some group pulling the strings right behind the scenes. The reality is, we're a people with a homeland. This is not to say I'm using the Old Testament as proof. I'm just talking about like carbon dating. Right. That's a piece of paper that is placing our people in that land, which means that's our homeland. And
archaeology also.
Archaeology supports
it, yeah.
Correct. And to understand the details of Israel, it's not something you can learn in 30 seconds, and it's not something you can pick up from a flyer. Right. You don't have to either support peace or support Israel. And I think that's another misconception that people have, is that everyone who supports Israel is a warmonger and doesn't believe that Palestinian people have rights and doesn't believe that Palestinian people should have a state. It's simply not true. And while there are factions of every government that you may not agree with, and there are things that happen during wartime that are horrendous, that does not paint the picture of the entire people. I wouldn't judge any other people by a government I don't agree with or a military I don't like. It's also really unbelievable to me that people wouldn't see the massacre that occurred, the children and grandparents and defenseless, peace-loving civilians that were killed and kidnapped. One of the things that I think has been a rallying cry for a lot of the Jewish community is we don't need other people's approval because we clearly are not going to get it. The truth of October 7th is staring the world in the face, and there's still a question about how do we grieve appropriately. It really shows me that that's why our tribe has to protect itself. And we can do that with allies, and I appreciate people who are allies, but in many cases, it's just us,
Are you hopeful about the future after all of this?
I do remain hopeful. I don't believe there's any other way forward. I can't let myself sink into that negativity. And I know that we don't all have to agree, but as for me and my home, we believe in peace, we have hope, that there has to be a greater good for all. And it's not the path of war, and I believe that everywhere around the world.
Yeah, I don't think the Jewish community, ever wanted to be in a war, and I know that we are on the side at one piece. I know that we are on the side that if they release the hostages, it would be over. There wouldn't be any justification for war. I think Hamas knows that as well.
I think that's why we don't have our hostages back.
For me, the silver lining is that American Jews and people like yourself are coming forward and are speaking up and putting yourself in a vulnerable position. I'm sure you're getting backlash all the time for this.
For me, I never considered it controversial to be Jewish, and I got backlash for being Jewish. And when social media started and I started using Facebook, I would get threats just because I was Jewish. And that's why it's very clear to me it's not about the occupation, it's not about territory, it's about Jews. That's been my experience. Of course, I have friends in the Jewish community who are very clear in one direction about what Israel needs to do, and I have friends who have the polar opposite opinion about what Israel needs to do. So we are allowed to have that variability. The place where I think we have to have cohesion, no matter what you believe, is in the belief that Israel deserves to exist. That's the definition of Zionism, that Israel has a right to exist as an autonomous, free and safe homeland for the Jewish people. That's it. All of us experience backlash from that. For some of us, it's lost jobs. For some of us, it's lost endorsements. For some of us, it's a real shift in career perspective. People like Sacha Baron Cohen.
The ultimate aim of society should be to make sure that people are not targeted, not harassed, and not murdered because of who they are, where they come from, who they love, or how they pray.
Amy Schumer, Sarah Silverman, Deborah Messing, Jerry Seinfeld and Jessica, it's unbelievable. There's been people like Regina Spektor, who many people didn't even know was Jewish, chose to speak out. And even when I see statements, surrounding complexity, even Scarlett Johansson being able to say, I'm a Jewish woman, and like Gal Gadot, obviously, she has been a warrior, and
David
Schwimmer, and it depends where you're at in your career in terms of how much you want to engage, can engage, and I think that's going to vary from celebrity to celebrity. Ben Stiller wrote an unbelievable piece about this for Time, and it was such a beautiful and eloquent description of what it's like to be a liberal Zionist, and a progressive. And it's important, I think, to share a perspective so that people understand the complexity of the Jewish experience right now.
So you were a Hebrew teacher as well, and
I taught Hebrew school, and then I've also tutored Hebrew. In Reform Judaism, we were taught to read and write, but not speak Hebrew, which it's a phonetic language. So when I got to college, I actually wanted to study Yiddish because I was raised with Yiddish. That's one of the roughly 24 Jewish languages that have existed. So I ended up doing 2 years of Hebrew, then I did a year of Yiddish. So my love for Hebrew really, it grew in so many ways. I chant from the Torah, and that's something I've done since I was young, and I lead services, and I was a lay leader in college, and I blow shofar, and I do all these things. But being able to use Hebrew in Israel is incredibly gratifying. I'm a very much falafel in my hand, walking in Jerusalem kind of person. The more pickles, the better.
Right.
Chipsim, the whole bit. So yeah.
But can you teach me a word in Yiddish that I probably don't know?
Okay, I'll teach you a fun one. Verputzt. Verputzt. It means all dressed up, all
dressed up.
Ready, but
verputzt.
A little bit fancy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's oh, look who's all verputzt, like that. That's what you use it for. So yeah.
Yiddish always sounds like there's undertone of an insult or
It's there's always a double meaning.
I'm going to read something in Hebrew to you, and you try to help me, and we'll try. If it's good, it's good.
Okay.
חתול רך, חתול חם, כדור קטן של פרווה, חתול שמח.
Is this soft kitty? That's soft kitty.
It is, you got it.
Chatul. I know chatul. Look at that.
It's soft kitty,
warm kitty.
Middle of fur.
That's great. Soft
kitty, warm kitty, little ball of fur. Happy kitty, sleepy kitty, purr, purr, purr.
That's nice. Now in German.
Weiches Kätzchen, warmes Kätzchen, das nie und nimmer mört. Liebes Kätzchen, müdes Kätzchen, schnürt, schnürt, schnürt.
That's great. Now Mandarin.
Wow, mian mian du shou mao mei mao dong dong. Kuai lu ku she cheng chao mao mei gulu gulu gulu.
Now Navajo.
Before we finish, there's two science tricks that I want you to explain me
okay.
what it means and why it happens this
I'll
way.
see what I can do.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know
Right.
everything, but
I'm sure you do. So the first one that that was the one that you spin the leg and then
Oh,
you need
yeah,
to do
yeah.
this. So I'm going to spin my leg clockwise, right?
okay,
So
yeah.
it's like this, and then I'm going to try and draw the number 6 in the air, and the leg is moving in a different direction. Or it's not even moving. Wait, I'll do it again. So this is clockwise, right? And then I'm trying to do 6, and it's changing to the
It's just changed.
What is it?
I don't know. I don't know precisely.
Maybe it's not a thing. Maybe I
No,
just,
it's a thing, but I can't remember why. I mean, I may have learned it in grad school, but
No, but this was great. Listen, thank you so much for coming over for this
Thank
conversation.
you.
You're amazing. You're incredible.
Thank
you so
you.
much for
Thank
sharing
you.
this with
Thank
me
you.
and with everyone. I think I speak on behalf of so many people. Really, your voice means so much to so many. And
thank you.
yeah, I feel like better days, they have to come, right?
Can you hear that, son?
Can you hear that song? I think it's Ben Gurion who said that in the Middle East, to be a realist, you have to believe in miracles.
That's right.
Right.
Yep.